So welcome back. This is the second portion. The first one got interrupted, and I was talking about our human psyche has an inner dimension that corresponds, as above so below, as within so without, to the external. And that our awareness, basically, if we allow ourselves to get to that point and just let ourselves relax, and we become, you might say, the arbiter or the gatekeeper of what goes from the unmanifested to the manifest. So we are a creator. And there's, again, I mention this phrase a lot, as above, so below, as within, so without. Depth psychology in the esoteric sense talks a lot about the inner dimensions of our awareness have a correspondence, you might say, in a symbolic way, at least, or metaphorical way, an analog between whatever appears outside in the so-called manifest, and there's many different grades of manifestation, you see. Even if with our own sense organs, we can see that there's fine mist, and there's lead. I mean, it goes on. We can see that in even with our physical senses, we can see that this creation has very, very, very many levels, the whole spectrum of dimensions, and that in a like manner, our own being, in our own consciousness, just the consciousness itself, without attaching any identity to it or any label of our own awareness, can be experienced in a much more subtle and large spectrum manner. And basically it goes on and on and on. And this is what the sages say. Look, I mean, there's what they call initiations. I have a book over here called The Rays and Initiations, and there's one, the sun takes initiation, and the solar system takes initiation, and every human being takes initiation. When we're born, that's an initiation. It's an initiation, and that understanding is a transformational place, just like as above, so below. You have various kinds of frequencies, like in cymatics, where you have the frequency changes and the shape changes. As above, so below. That's why sound and beautiful music and harmonies like that can maneuver the energies, you might say, or stimulate the energy, or help organize our being, our internal being, through the mechanism of our brain, through the tissues that we have in the endocrine system and the pineal gland and the fluids in our body and the salts and so on, that the technology that we have as human beings allows us to have a very, very profound experience of being alive. And that's what knowledge is about. That's what the ancient teachings, the science of the soul, the supreme knowledge, as they call it, from the Krishna and whatever. And I won't get into the religious aspects of it because there's many different religions, and they often complement each other, and there's a lot of conflict in sometimes too because of our concepts of what, if we only understood that if you're a human being, there shouldn't need to be a bunch of religions, because we all have this body is the religion, you might say. It is the temple. It is where we're existing. Whatever God, if God is truly omnipresent, then it's here. It's everywhere. So once we understand that, like say water in a sponge, you can put the water, you can take the sponge, soak it in water, and take it out of the water, and it'll have all that water in it. As soon as you put it back in the water, all the water in the sponge merges with the water around it. Our own nature, our life force, our consciousness, our profound, non-local, non-judgmental, non-dual root awareness is like that water. As soon as we have an experience and it touches, it starts to touch the ocean water, you might say, the ocean of consciousness, we just go back to being connected. Knowledge. Now, once we have the miracle of this life and we're living and we come out of the womb and we look around at babies and we grow up and we start having a little identity. I call it the paper mache identity. Looks like a duck, sort of, but not really. Our identity that we impose on ourselves, and there's people that want to come by in their life and just like that paper mache say, look, we want to put this little, I got a piece of a magazine here, I'm going to slap it on there and put a little paste on there and stick it on you, so to speak. There's a certain part of our being that is like a Teflon. It's like gold. Nothing, that part of our being, nothing corrupts it. And it's with us. It's just permeates. It's like that water in the sponge. That's the knowledge. That's the teaching. That's the direct experience that shows up once and for all, as I was saying in the previous video. Once and for all, you know, I'm not the body. Hallelujah, whatever, and I came in this womb and with grace, and I don't know how it's sustaining itself, and God is very mysterious because here I am walking around like a big ball of water in a tube, you might say, and I can do all this stuff, I can fly an airplane or whatever, and all that stuff that we have this life that has existed is totally fantastic miracle. So even if we have that kind of understanding, then you just look at it and say, well, I don't want to be fighting with anybody. I'm not going to be destroying anything. Let's have a good time here. Let's dance and sing and celebrate the fact that we're alive. Because we don't know how long it's going to last. There is a science to knowing our being, okay? And I'm a very big believer in the fact that the ultimate science, the ultimate thing that we need to know, it has to be simple, it has to be easy, and it has to be fast, okay? Waking up can be easy, simple, and fast. You open it, you're in a dark room, you open the door into this problem. Simple. So what a great teacher does is, there's many of them, and I prefer the one that but I've listened to many people, and there's been so many of them. So if the question is, if you find a really good technique and someone is willing to teach you and guide you for, it's sort of like, people don't want to have a teacher, okay? Well, think about that. If you want to progress in your life, and even pilots who've been working for 30 years, they go through their little retraining, and they go for it's part of the process. Just always improving, always, so be a student, and it's just like riding a bicycle. Okay, let's say, you're a little kid and your dad wants to teach you how to ride a bicycle, or your friend wants to teach you how to ride a bicycle, and and he says, look, it's very easy, just keep trying this and this way, and okay, and then you learn how to ride the bicycle, maybe you fall a few times and whatever, and you get back up, and after that, you ride wherever you want to go, and you have fun for years on your bicycle. Knowledge of our own being, the introduction, so, okay, it's a really, really simple one-page manual, excuse me. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, or Carl Jung's, like a library of massive books about your mind, and you can go on and on forever and ever talking about the aspects of the mind, because our consciousness is linked to that infinite. So all you got to do is look at all the inventions and the societies that have been around the world and the history. You go, wow, those human beings, man, they can do a lot of stuff. And if we coordinate, the real science of knowledge of ourself has to do, again, with the wholeness, with the unity, because we come from a unity, we go back to a unity. And essentially, if you look at a drop of water in the ocean, we're part of that ocean, and we don't need to know everything in the ocean, but we can ride along with that part of the ocean, and that's how each of us has an individual aspect to where we're placed, the timing where we are, the people we meet, the circumstances of our life, and so on. But once we wake up and say, look, I have choices, you see, like once you know that you have a Maserati that can go in the water and fly in the sky, you say, okay, well, now let's think about what I can do here. Maybe I got some new plans because I find out I got some equipment here. So knowledge is extremely simple. The ultimate knowledge is extremely simple. It goes from the outside to the inside. Take the senses that always are distracted. We have these beautiful, beautiful senses, and they can be refined and so on. And then to understand that there's an inner, that's a great mystery, which we can get into sometime, but The esoteric teachings say, look, the senses that we have are different kinds of taste, touch, hearing, and so on. Hearing comes in the physical matter, in the water and the eardrums, and there's many kinds of hearing and beings that can hear all kinds of stuff. And it's amazing. Even some people can hear amazing things. And then there's the clairaudience and people. So there's that aspect. So that these five senses, these aspects of seeing, there's a cosmic seeing, you might say, there's a cosmic feeling, there's a cosmic as above, so below. There's touch, there's membranes that touch, there's energies that interact, there's circulation that happens, there's sparks that go, and there's forms that are molded and unfolded and so on. So all that technology is happening on a micro scale within our own body. This is where some of the great mysteries that, look, the universe is within you in a sense. There's atoms in you, right? I mean, atoms are, we get told, like, atoms are pretty amazing things and fantastic, and hydrogen's the first one, and it's pretty prevalent here, and we got a bunch of it in our body. Isn't it pretty cosmic? So there is an aspect of our own knowledge and synthesis that brings a lot of liberation and understanding. And this, you see all the great creations that human beings have made. We all have the potential. So it's basically saying, okay, you know, get on your horse and start riding this baby, because you got yourself a new car, so to speak, when you get born here. Now, I want to make these videos short, and this one belongs in the second part of the one that's previous. And I got a few more minutes here, so I'll keep going here. I have a lot of books I can recommend, and this fat book about symbolism, I'll show you that in another video. But I made some notes here recently. I've done lots of this in my life, but there's a lot of different symbols, shapes, that are, we bring those shapes in our mind when we see an external symbol, and it resonates and it reflects on underlying internal wisdom that is innate in us. It's built into the cell structure. All of these things are built in. Where do all the geniuses come from? Where does all these inventions come from? They come from human beings who had an understanding of their own depths. And we all have that. And I talk a lot about this because from my point of view, and I started very young in this at 20 years old, and I've known people who start even younger. By the time you get a little older, you say you got to, at least if you practice, you have a pretty good bearing on your life, and your life is pretty damn happy and coordinated. Now, the thing is, it's very possible, like, you have let's say you're driving down the road on a nice highway and you take a couple exits, and next thing you know, you're rolling down the hill on a gravel road or something, and you're in your Maserati and it's got low clearance. You see, so in our life, we have, just because we go and do erroneous and things, or let's say we say not for the best, that wasn't for the best, the decision or whatever. Let's say we do those things, but we have the ability to steer ourselves and direct ourselves back into another, start using all that technology that we have and our genius and our invention. And many people have started from scratch many times and built all kinds of empires and whatever. Because if you get off the road in life and you have some problems and you get confused or you forget to practice and so on, then it's just very simple. Just, okay, I get my bearings here, and I get myself together here, and start, like in an airplane, you say, okay, I've tested all the functions here, make sure everything's good, turn the radios in the right place, and start that baby up. Get your life in order. It can happen multiple times. See, in an airplane, you land in many times, and not every landing is just a real perfect, smooth landing. Definitely. But the analogy is there's a lot of things in life you can't control, like in an airplane, there's wind. You can't control the wind and the weather. You got to deal with that. But then on the other side, you have your own wits, and you have your understanding of your airplane and your vehicle and all the different functions that you can, and then you say, well, I know what the obstacles are, and I'll deal with it. So I really believe that the real understanding that we need is very, very simple. Basically, a certain liberation to understand a little bit about this, our awareness and our potential here. and explore that throughout our life. And there's so many different things to do, whatever your particular tendency. Some people like music, some people like art, some people like whatever, business, and there's all different ways to express this incredible genius that we all have. And I feel sad that there's so much conflict between religions and people and everything, because we're all here having this fantastic life, and what are we arguing for? Doesn't make really much sense. Because we could all be making something really happy here, and celebrating and dancing and having parties and talking to each other. And so I'll continue a lot in this series, and if you get anything from this, please let me know. I really enjoy hearing from people, and I know I don't have a huge audience. It doesn't matter, because if something that I can share in my experience and journey benefits anybody, even just one person, and I know there's more, but it's good. It's good, because we're just here to try to figure this out here, and we're all part of this process. So thanks again, and please like and share.